Hi everybody, PugGaming here. I'm back once again collaborating with Paradox Interactive to bring to you some hints and tricks on how to create realistic rivers. Now, you may have noticed already that on the workshop a new release for Macwelshman has been these network rivers. Now these are sensational and they are a game changer when creating realistic rivers. I was lucky enough to catch up with Macwelshman and find out a little bit more about his background and how he came to create such an amazing new asset.
Hi, I'm Macwelshman. I first worked as a photographer and later on a graphic designer up until ill health stopped me from working at all a few years ago. So when I first got Cities Skylines back in 2015, I saw an opportunity to stay creative, learn a new skill, 3D modelling, and make sure UK players had content to make cities familiar to them. I've improved my skills a lot over the last 4 years, and I've created loads of different assets for the game, from a washing line to the Monte Carlo Casino. Most recently, I created the UK Road project, and now a Stately Home series. Whilst creating the network moats for the Little Morton Hall Stately Home, I had a moment of inspiration. I thought, maybe this could be the way to get water flowing more easily and make better rivers. Creating rivers with the landscaping tools has always been really hard, and the results rarely realistic. That's when Network Rivers was conceived. It took a lot of trial and error to get the riverbed shape right and get the textures looking good enough. The biggest challenge was getting a consistent flow. There's a fine line between flood and drought. I think the results could help a lot of players create fantastic adjustable rivers.
Never a truer word said. Thank you very much for the insight there, Macwelshman. It's always good to find out a little bit more about the creator and how they got to where they are today. So we really do appreciate that. So for you guys to create your own beautiful network rivers, the first thing you need to do is jump onto the workshop and subscribe to the network pack. There's 2 of them. And they all come in a variety of different shapes and sizes. First up here on screen you can see the Rocky Mountain, and also there is the Green Valley as well. So these all come with a variety of different versions. Check them all out, there's different widths and sizes. There'll be something perfect for you. Now before we even begin, I would highly recommend you pause the game, because simulation when building rivers and doing anything water-wise is very, very difficult. Now we need to find a location suitable for the river and terrain. Now you need to consider that the river's source needs to be at least 50 meters higher up in game than the estuary. Now you can do this as shown on screen by right clicking on the mouse under the terrain height and checking that the difference between the 2 figures are above 50. This will allow the water to flow sufficiently. Next up you need to create your water source. Fill it about halfway up, and we'll come back to this very shortly. Next up we need to slope the terrain downwards. So use the slope terrain tool, and we basically want to go from the source of the river to the sea. So to do so you need to click on the slope tool, right click on the highest point, and then use your mouse to drag from the sea level right up, including all the curves, and basically map out how you want your river to look. The reason we're using the slope tool is to create a slow decrease in the land to allow the water to flow smoothly from top to bottom. Now comes the fun part. It's time to now lay down the river. I would recommend using the freeform network tool to create the realistic curves as a river descends. Personally, I found it easier to select one width of river and then upgrade it after to the one that suits. If you've already followed the previous steps, you should already have a very nice descending riverbed. However, to ensure this is correct, you can use the Move It Align Slope tool to ensure that all the river nodes are gradually descending. Now correct the terrain, use the Soften Terrain Landscaping tool to smooth out any sections and ensure that none of them are below the river's height, otherwise water will leak through. Now for the moment of truth, it's time to raise up the source water to a level where it will overrun into the river. Now this is a tricky part, and it does take a lot of time and patience to make sure you get the right level. You can tweak it many times and eventually you will find the perfect water level to run smoothly down your rivers. With that said, there may be parts of the river that may not be running as smooth. For example, here we can see that the water is a little bit thinner in channel, and we can fix this with the Move It mod tool. Click on that and click on the node central to where the point of water is reduced, and basically page up or page down depending on the water level to increase it and get a smooth water flow going. For more severe overfill problems such as this, you'll need to use a different technique. As you can see here, if we go into the landscaping tools, you can see that the terrain itself has dropped quite dramatically below where the river network is laying. To resolve this, you'll need to remove the network river from this segment and use the landscaping tool to smooth over the area to level it off. Relay down the network river and check for the water flow. On the topic of water flow, there may be parts of the river whereby you need a water boost. To do so is quite simple. You need to place down a water source. However, I would highly recommend you change the value of the water capacity. You can actually do lower than what the slider does. So in the entry box, if you type in 0.001, place down your water source mostly at the top of a curve and then lower it down, and this should really help with the flow of water. All that's left now is for some detailing, and let's hear a final thought from Macwelshman, who has some tips to offer us as well.
There are loads of tips and techniques useful for making these rivers effective. As a creative person, I think it's important to make the rivers look as realistic as possible. I like to vary the width of the river as it descends, making bends wider where the water erodes the banks and narrower in fast-flowing sections. When the river gets wide and closer to the estuary, having large sweeping curves in the floodplain looks great. You could even create oxbow lakes to add interest.
Thank you for those tips there, Macwelshman. So that pretty much brings us to the end of this little tutorial. I hope the information has been of some help and will help you create some beautiful rivers. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos in the future. Until next time, happy building.